I'm Greg Ferguson with Sierra Club's Extreme Sea Level Program.
And I'm Stephen Crystal with the Edmonds Climate Advisory Board. We're going to talk about the risk that Edmonds faces from Puget Sound flooding, about what's going to get wet and when, how often that's likely to happen, what's at risk, and most importantly, what we can do about it to secure Edmonds' future.
Here we are at the 180 West Dayton building in Harbor Square. This is ground zero for sea level rise, the lowest building along the waterfront. The ground floor here is 11.1 feet. To provide some context to that number, the static flood elevation of Puget Sound is now 12.4 feet. Because there's higher ground between here and Puget Sound, the likelihood of flooding is only about 1%. This is pretty unlikely and not enough to get too excited about unless you're the one having to pay for flood insurance. By 2050, the flood elevation is here, and the likelihood of flooding is about 10%. By 2100, flood elevations rise to here, and the frequency of flooding will be yearly. This is a big problem. Flooding will be widespread, frequent, and deep throughout the waterfront by then. Future coastal flooding will have other impacts. We're here on the beach in front of the fishing pier. Because of the gentle slope, sea level rise will remove a big part of this beach over time. Other problems with sea level rise are that waves will overtop these bulkheads and damage buildings. There's also the potential for wave action to undermine the bulkheads.
The solutions for coastal flooding fall into a few different categories. The one that's easiest in the short term is also the most dangerous, and that's doing nothing. And that's also the most expensive one in the long run. Another solution is hardscape shoreline protection like seawalls and armorings. Protection can also be in the form of nature-based solutions such as beach nourishment, marshes, dunes, vegetation. Adaptation to flooding can also be accomplished by raising the height of buildings. And finally, there is managed relocation, moving infrastructure upland and out of harm's way.
So that's a summary. We'll dive into the details now. First, with what elements combine to produce flood risk?
There isn't just one element that creates the potential for flooding in Edmonds. Risk is highest when several things happen at the same time. Of course, tides are a biggie. Coastal flooding happens when the tide is in, not out. King tides, which are the highest that happen each year, are now about 11 feet. They occur in the winter between November and February. The less frequent tides, like the ones that happen every 100 years, are much higher. We're here along the Edmonds waterfront. On January 7th, the tidal elevation is at 11 feet. Another important element is waves, often neglected. Static, or still floodwater, causes problems, but waves damage buildings, erode beaches, and undermine bulkheads. As sea levels rise, wave energy will be transported farther inland. Imagine this with sea levels 2 feet higher. Wind can make flooding worse. When the wind direction is from the west or northwest, water stacks up on our side of the sound, raising water elevations and directing big waves to the shore. Low air pressure acts sort of like a straw, pulling water up. This can be a significant factor. This is a graph of what happened on December 27th, 2022. Measured water levels in Seattle were 2 feet higher than predicted due to a west wind and low air pressure.
I'm Al Snap of the Edmonds Marsh Estuary Advocates. Heavy rainfall can overwhelm drainage systems and streams. We're here at the Dayton Street Stormwater Pump Station. As designed, these pumps can move floodwater away from the waterfront. But when the high tides are too high, the pumping is ineffective. It just circulates salt water around. On the other hand, when the tides recede, the pumps become effective and they can remove floodwater quickly.
There are other longer-term flood elements. One is groundwater rise. Even if we build a giant seawall along the shoreline, groundwater will rise behind it. Unfortunately, in Edmonds, we are slowly sinking due to plate tectonics. This makes sea level rise worse. It is accounted for in the localized sea level rise models.
What happens in the Pacific Ocean impacts Puget Sound. For example, the PDO and El Nino can push warm water, which has a higher volume, towards us, raising Puget Sound significantly. Sea level rise magnifies the risk of other elements. The dashed lines on the left here are what has been happening up till now. Note that the rate of increase will be accelerating rapidly. There's a lot of variation from year to year, and rise won't magically stop at the turn of the century. It's interesting that the last time CO2 levels were as high as they are right now, sea levels were 30 feet higher, and large mammals roamed the Antarctic. Sea levels will continue to rise no matter what we do about greenhouse gas emissions, though slowing the process down, which is something we can do, is critical.